Okay. So if you have not received one of these, just raise your hand and the ushers will bring it to you. Over here, Arjuna. All right, so we're going to begin. If anyone else needs the agenda, just raise your hand. We have some more here. There's some more at the back. So welcome. For who is this your first time you've been at a family forum? Who's here for the first time? Here? There? All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for taking the extra time. So we're just going to cover financial reports first, and then Addison will bring us the congregational report, a quick staff update, school report Margaret will give for us, Brady will be here for the East Village kids, and then we'll end with vision update from the elders. Normally our financial reports are covered by Tony Sands. Tony is our treasurer, and Tony is in Guatemala coming home on Tuesday. So I get the honors of doing Tony's role, and I won't even try to use a Swiss accent. Mainly what we wanted to do financially is this is the last time that we will have to give a financial report on the renovation project, which we've been announcing for 2 years now. So for the past 2 years, every family forum always had projections and estimates and how's it going so far and so forth and so on. And this is the concluding report of how did things turn out when construction was finally done, the books were audited, the forms were turned back into government people, and where are we at now? So just turn to the back side of your agenda, and you'll see a colorful blue and green line. And we have a slide for that also for those watching online. It's worth noting at the top left corner that actually our timeline had started well before when we twice applied for a government grant for daycare, and on the second time we were successful, and then we began estimating cost. November 2021, we had presented that the cost to West Coast would probably be about 1.3 million. This isn't on the screen, but it's on the back side. And if you need a copy, there's some on the back counter and there's some up here. Then that was presented November 2021, and then oops, I think we've got a typo here. Phase 1 was approved January 2022. By that time, people in our church had pledged $800,000 of donations or pledges that would come in the next 6 months. And with those gifts, we were able to say yes to phase 1, which was basically saying we'll get the daycare open. We don't know if we'll be able to open the office. By July of that year, 2022, the engineered build drawings were complete. Pricing began to get more accurate. Building permits were granted. And then a final construction budget, not our total cost, but the construction budget was at that time at 1.247, which was approved. Jumping ahead for a year later, March 31st, 2023, we gave approval to complete all of phase 2, which included the wheelchair ramp, the parking lot, the landscaping between, and the remainder of the offices, and so forth and so on. So in the end, we did approve the total project, and on the left side of your blue line, you'll see the original estimates. These are the estimates before we actually had build drawings, engineered drawings, and accurate pricing. But compare that to a midway point in September of 2023, 1 year ago, and then our final cost on the far right side. So you can see at the top row 1 that our final cost for the construction that was farmed out to the contractor came in 27% higher than what we had originally guessed at in 2021. That ended at almost 1.5 million. And then the more important number that you might be interested in is line 11, or row 11. Total project cost, because some of these things went back and forth between what the contractor would do and what we would look after ourselves with our own trades. The total budget went from $2,092,000 in 2021, estimated, to concluding at 8.5% higher, $2,271,000. Then there was a grant, which we had at the very beginning approved from the provincial government for over $700,000. A small grant that came along the way recently for $9,000 towards security cameras, paid for by the proceeds of crime in BC. Thank you to the criminals. And the total cost to West Coast, after we take out the grants, the total amount that we needed to fundraise was $1,493,000. And in the last 2 years, the donations that we have given have amounted to $1,800,000, which leaves us with, owing on the project is about $385,000. That is a wonderful conclusion so far. Last year, at the end of the project, we took out some loans as a bridging loan to see, we didn't know where things were going to wrap up, so we put some things in place. 5 different West Coast members loaned money. One of them has been paid back, $30,000 that they loaned. 4 of them still have their funds loaned to us. So we have $150,000 in loans from our members, and we have $245,000 plus from Coast Capital Savings, which is currently on an open loan and will be finalized in January, depending on how much between now and January we are able to fundraise and pay down on that. Then there's a note at the bottom here that we also have a mortgage on our school and East Village Kids preschool property, which a mortgage amounting to just over $400,000 there. And that concludes the final outcome of a project that we have heard about for far too long. But it's been a good chapter. This final project is, of course, one of many. And at the end of about 8 years of continual construction, starting with the drainage around the outside, then the downstairs, then the patio, and then this building here, plus some other things in between during COVID when we did some painting. What questions do you have about the final concluding amount that we have given and spent? No question. I'll just repeat for those on camera. Is there a budget for maintenance? Not from the project, but that's a very good point, because you might notice at the school, we're at about a 19-year mark on the school renovations, and those are now in the era of needing ongoing maintenance. So we're probably have about 10 years here until we start seeing a lot of that, but that's something that we'll, actually I'll mention something about that a little later on in the meeting. Yeah.
When you say we raised one, or this is $1.1 million, do we know how many non-church members or former church members, how many people beyond the people who congregate here on the Saturday morning?
Right. The question is, of the $1 million that has been given, how much is outside of our normal West Coast members? I don't have the accurate number. I know it is written down. Tony can dig it up for you, but off the top of my head, I would say it has felt like the fundraising has come from this congregation plus maybe 10 others outside, maybe 10 others who are former alumni. And it's also important to note that the vast majority of the gifts are $20,000 or less. So it's not that there's been $500,000 from one person. The largest gifts were $100,000, and it's really encouraging because it's not like this has been raised just because someone was connected to somebody wealthy, but actually it's the members of our church giving faithfully. Andrew? Does the church have the finances to pay off the $400,000, or are we continuing to fundraise? There's two ways to look at it. We don't have that much in the bank, no. We could push hard and fundraise and get it taken care of. But there are others among us who have been feeling like, at one level, the daycare does have an income like a business, and this would be a low mortgage if you looked at it from that standpoint. And so we haven't made any hard, fast thoughts on that, except to say that we just feel like between now and January, when we come back to Coast Capital and decide how much we're locking in, for all of us to just pray and ask God what He would have you do. So it's not an emergency that we have to have a certain amount of money by a certain date, but actually we all know that paying interest and paying interest and paying interest is not a good use of funds either. So we are praying that between now and January, each of us will say, Lord, how much would you like my family to pay towards this final amount? And there's not an emergency because, yes, we could lock it into a long-term mortgage like we had with the school. But for instance, with the school and preschool, we're spending about $1,700 a month on interest. And so anytime that we can do away with that, it would be a great advantage to the long-term future. Okay, does the daycare pay rent? Let me just quickly, I'm going to cover all the budgets in just a minute. Any other questions about, did we pay the contractor enough?
The remaining fundraising is $385. Does that include what's to be paid back to the members?
Yes. Total, including what's paid to the members, is $385. The reason that you see a little bit of a difference in the bridging, we had actually borrowed $10,000 more than we need. So $395 is the total amount, because we actually borrowed more than what we needed. So
Basically, what we're paying back now is the members who have donated.
So there was 1,100,000 donated, the green number in line 14. Those are complete free gifts. In addition to that, we borrowed a little bit from Coast Capital, and we borrowed from currently 4 members who have loaned a total of 150. Yeah, so people gave, and then people also gave an interest-free loan to save interest. So the total to pay back is $385 on the project. Daniel. Let's save that for later, too. Is there any expansion plans for future? Any more questions on this budget? Rowena. We'll come. Don't let me forget, though. Rowena. Yes. Mostly school. So it's the total amount financed is $425 plus $395 currently. And if we can bring that down, yeah. The $395 is flexible right now until January, and then we have to decide what kind of an arrangement we want with the bank after that. Whereas the mortgage is actually on a monthly mortgage. All right. I think we need to celebrate, though. You know, church, it's been amazing. If you think about the last 8 years and then you might remember how that project almost didn't go forward because the price tag was quite a bit higher than what we thought. And the fact that we stepped out in faith and we finished it, and it feels like this whole property is, as we said, restored for the next 100 years. That's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And it's happened because of you. Like, look around the room. We're not 500 people. We're a small group. And it happened because of this group and maybe 10 friends outside. All right, so give yourself a hand. I think that was really good. Just a brief overview of the whole organization financially, and this isn't an annual report. This is just how much are we looking after in the course of a year. Let's go to the next slide. An overview of our annual budgets on average right now is through the church funds, $374,000, and that includes what we tithe and what the daycare is now contributing. We'll get that in a minute. On top of that, our outreach offerings going other places typically are about $50,000 a year. In the preschool, out-of-school summer camp space, typically $185,000 is managed there with students that are after-school care, preschool, and camps, and the staff. The new daycare, at the current levels, we average about 95% full. So right now, this is not a year-end report. Right now, the books are, we open in April, we had certain expenses, things get leveled out, and then about now, we're in the groove where we know how much is coming in per month. And that total, if you just took it from now for 12 months, about $560,000 is coming in and through the daycare project. The school, which this year went from grade 12 to a K-9 school, the annual budget for that is about $1.1 million. So altogether, West Coast Christian Fellowship is looking after about $2.25 million and property assets of around $6 million with the property that we own here and at the 2 spots over there. So that's a big overview. A lot happening, and I think it's important, don't want to put anybody on the spot here, but the week before, I took some of our young adults through the school property we call Oxford, where the high school used to meet, and was showing it to them. I was amazed at how many of our young adults who have been here for years have never been in our school property. So somehow we need to work on bringing into our vision and into our publicity all that is happening through our church, lest we think that what we see on 2 hours on Sunday morning is the sum total. God has called us to touch this neighborhood and to bring His love to the neighborhood. And that's happening in many, many ways, in a huge scale. And so we need to keep celebrating that and promoting that and hope that as our young people grow up, they will also be teachers in our school, workers in our daycare, and helping us to reach out into the neighborhood. There was a question over here.
Are these numbers, are they generally intakes or outlays?
These numbers are just income. Just income for the year. And actually, I had a note about that too. We would say that right now, this year, our general budget for the church was projecting about $43,000 positive. By Christmas time, it's $43,000 positive, so it's balanced. That's good. The budget for the preschool is basically balanced. The budget for the daycare will be balanced as of November, but then projecting for the year ahead, a 12-month cycle at the current sitting would be $45,000 positive. In addition to, the daycare is now contributing $5,000 a month to the church budget towards rent for that property. However, $1,700 of that is the cleaning cost. So you could be thinking if you take electric and cleaning and expenses, maybe $3,000 a month rent is coming in towards that portion. And that's just a low number that we set that we're just playing with until we see how the books come out. It's just in the early stages now. But the good news is that it's positive for the daycare, it's positive for the church, and there's funds coming in, and we'll see where that goes in the next year. And then the school, We had 2 years where there were significant budget losses, 100,000 the one year, and then last year we thought it was going to be about 80,000. In the end, it was only, what was it, 26? 26 in the end, right? So it came out better than we thought last year. The school really tightened up. But now by making the change to a K-9 school for this year, the budget is balanced. And so far projections for this year look like a slightly positive budget. So more on that in a minute. All right, expansion, Daniel. We're done with, no more construction budgets. We're done. What's your question on expansion? Here, let me just give you a mic. We have a limited amount of kids for EVK.
Okay, hello, I'm Daniel. No, I know we have a limited amount of kids on EVK, and the neighborhood is big. Our building is not too big, and we have only these 2 buildings as our property. But is there any expansion plans, like maybe the second roof? I know there's some offices over there, but I don't know. For the daycare, yes.
Is there any? Yeah, there was a time when the school got too big and the offices got kicked out. We could do that again. Actually, Brady, do you want to mention anything about EVK expansion plans? Come here. There's ideas. So let's just say there's ideas, and possibilities are.
So yeah, there's obviously ideas and there's need, and so your mind starts swirling. For me, I think it's important to keep a focus on what we're doing right now and how we're supporting the families that are with us right now and the ones that are coming in. I'll share a bit more about the work that's gone into that later, but yes, we could just keep going, but making sure that what we're offering is not only adequate, but well above that. So that's the focus. However, things come up, other people start talking, and so we're open to that. And so something that has come up is other church buildings in the neighborhood. And yeah, me and David have chatted, and I love the idea about other church buildings in the neighborhood coming to life as this one has, and having people in them all week long and people coming in and out, and the neighborhood just witnessing the churches being brought to life physically and with people. So there are some options, and we're assessing and dreaming, and but also trying to stay grounded.
Good question. Dan was on the school board. He asked expansive questions at school meetings too. All right. Well, let's move to congregational updates. Addison, you want to come?
Hi, everyone. Just a few glimpses at life in our church of things that are going on. We've got 5 connect groups currently running. Some of them are quite big, and there's space for other ones as well. Bethy and I lead a connect group on Sunday afternoons and hosting as well with Susan and Kristen and Morgan on rotation. The Fergusons, David and Vicky, lead on Thursdays, every second Thursday. And the Gorlicks, Andrew and Fran, every second Thursday as well. So Thursday is a big night. And also on Fridays, Martin and Rita Esther lead a connect group in Burquitlam. And just new now, there is a connect group with Wilfred and Becky there at the church office. And David, every 2 weeks? First and third Fridays on Fridays in North Vancouver. So there's 6 options for connect groups here. And if you want to join in, you can let me know or fill out a next step card. It's a great way of connecting, be encouraged in your faith, being known and knowing others as well. We've got another season of Alpha going. We've already had 2 sessions already, and 10, I think about 10 people coming. And it's been great conversations. And there's, I think, another 2 or 3 others who are wanting to come as well. Actually, I just got an email from someone from the Alpha website just this week saying I'd like to join in for Alpha. Young youth groups are starting to meet up again. So they're both on Fridays, the 2nd and 4th Fridays of the month in the church office building. So there's Roots, and Core is the senior youth. And for Roots, we've got Hector along with Jaden and Christelle. And Hector, wave your hand. And then for Core, we've got Ida with Stanley and Shannon. So we've got some good teams going there. I know that the Roots Junior Youth Group, they've got a little WhatsApp chat, and they are just going, just a lot of talking back and forth. And it's a great community that you guys are fostering there. Young adults are also meeting. So this is like the college and career age every Saturday night. And if you want to get involved with that or know someone who does, Josh, lift up your hand. Yeah. And then on Halloween night, as I mentioned, we'll have the Bright Lights outreach there. If you want to contribute cooking hot dogs at a barbecue, or popcorn, or hot chocolate, or making donuts, or anything, feel free to talk to me, or you can get in touch with Wilfred as well. And yeah, that'd be great. We also just yesterday had a small team of people planning out things for Advent. And so, yeah, I think we might have some new decorations and different aspects to help us to grow in our faith in Christ and our enjoyment, our longing for Christ's coming. And just a little sample is that our theme will be whole for the holidays, and different practices that help us to be more wholehearted for Christ, whole beings, not scattered and fragmented in the holiday season, but also way after that as well. So if you know anyone who doesn't go to church, who is a little bit scattered or stressed or doesn't like the holidays for various reasons, you could invite them to church. All right.
All right, staff update. Here's a chance to see who's up. This is just an excuse to show you a photo of all of our teachers, all of our daycare workers, our accounting staff, minus the accountant. We have the bookkeeper, but not the accountant. And we're also missing our maintenance people. So Susan asked about maintenance a little bit ago. One thing to say is that we're looking after 5 properties, and they need more and more care. And one of the things that's changing is that we're hiring more maintenance and depending less on volunteers. And I think that's appropriate when we have larger properties or more properties. Todd Kong is one that is on staff kind of as needed for the church property. And he's not full-time. He's not willing to do full-time, so don't tell him 10 things you ought to do. But when he's available, he comes in. And there's someone similar at the school named Tony Tissan, who lives in the neighborhood, and his son and daughter both teach at our school. And then there's actually other people that Wilfred is starting to hire. Wilfred is in touch with, I guess it's been about 8 weeks now, and Wilfred is now updated on all of our properties and wrapping his head around the many things that are going wrong and who to call for what. So there are more people that we're hiring, and I think we need to just put it in the back of our mind that maintenance does need to be part of our budget. Yeah. Maintenance just has to be something we do because we want to keep our properties at a good level where others can use it and we can use it. And one thing to just mention about that, we don't know the outcome of this, but last Sunday, we were contacted by a church who would like to rent this building. And The outcome, the elders haven't talked about it yet. Wilford and I met with the leaders of that church. It's a Chinese church that we know some of their founders. Some of you might know the name Gideon Chu, connected to that group of churches. And they're about our size, and then they have another campus in Surrey that's a bit smaller. And so they would be sizable enough that they could pay, market rate rent for the property. And if we did that, it would actually allow us to keep hiring maintenance to make sure that everything is well taken care of. So it feels like there's valuable property that we own, that God's entrusted to us, and it's important that we utilize it for the kingdom as much as we can, and not just once a week or throughout the week on our own schedule. So we'll see how that works out, but we're just at the early stages of that particular church. But if not that one, there is an interest from the elders to rent it out to someone. And to that end also, we need to be aware that we will be impacted. And so if another church begins using this, there will be things that something got left in the kitchen, something got left in the Sunday school room, and the sound equipment got blown up. No. But those kind of things happen when we use it too, right? And I really appreciated when we were looking into the daycare project a couple years ago. I interviewed 4 different churches who had daycare and shared space with daycare and Sunday school. All 4 of them were incredibly positive. And they all just said, we use the same stuff, we use the same equipment, and we just decided that we're just going to use it, and if it breaks, we buy a new one. And so we always keep it at that level but we don't worry about it, because accidents happen, and it doesn't matter if it's Sunday school or daycare. We just have enough income coming in that we just buy the next toy and buy the next coloring book, and it's okay. I think that's a good way to think about it with these kind of things, that these are property temporal issues, they're not eternal, and let's use these things for the kingdom, but let's keep it at a high level. Okay, so that's a staff update. School report. Margaret is on the school board. Margaret's going to come and give us Genesis notes. Genesis is our principal.
So Janice apologizes, but neither he or Leo was able to be here. So you can see our new staff, our new logo is being used. Okay, that's it. Oh, I have to go back here. Okay, but I have to look up here. Can I? Oh, right. Okay. Okay, so next one. He wants to announce that they have a new baby. So we've got Janice there, and CJ, and 30, and Jordy. Geordi or Y? Can't remember. Okay, so that's it for the Missoula update. The why of WCCS, I'm pretty sure this is going to be very familiar to any parents of kids in school. Vision, empowering students to confidently fulfill God's purpose for their lives. Cornerstones are faith, academics, character, and service. The pillars, which they seem to repeat as a full school at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, are represent your school with pride, engage in your learning journey, put your faith into action, serve your community with love, and they chant together, I can, I lead. Was there something else? It starts with I can, right? And then I lead, I serve, I am confident, I have purpose. So that's constantly repeated. And our bold goal, which I think we kind of came up with a year and a half ago at a kind of a training session, was West Coast Christian School is on mission as an agent of spiritual renewal. As a respected partner in the community of Hastings Sunrise, we work for transformation. That is, we are a faithful presence in the community. Our unique academic program, hospitable school community, and strategically resourced facility attracts sustainable enrollment. Excellent. What did we do during the summer? Actually, quite a lot. David was very busy, along with other people. So the WCCS signage upgrading is completed, and you can see it's got a new logo. Those of you who've been by lately might have noticed that the pole isn't painted yet, but that will be painted very soon. And other things, kindergarten space renovation completed. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Increased kindergarten class size from 13 to 16 with potential to reach 18 to 20 students in 2025 to 26. And the whole point of this really is to keep growing the school solidly through the grades so that we can eventually come back to a high school program. Okay, thank you. 24-25 startup, fully staffed, 13 staff, 98 students with K through 9 with potential for more before the end of the school year. New director for student life, Mr. Leo Thiessen. I think his father was just mentioned. We're so blessed to have him. He's got a really good rapport with this particular student age. He's been running a whole, what do you call it, worship music club with the kids, and it's just really sounding lovely. So he runs chapel clubs and the middle school. And there's increased participation. I think the staff and people from the parent advisory committee have gotten together to put together an online sign-up system so that you can go and see what needs to be done and you can sign up for it, which is a real encouragement and stuff. People have been coming forward on that. School volunteering opportunities, in classroom support. This is for basically anybody. In classroom support, building maintenance support, crosswalk supervision duties, event support. That's the kind of thing that's on this online request form. And special events coming up, the Christmas concert, some of you might remember last year's, which was just ringing the rafters here, and a walkathon April 4th. Okay. I mean, there's lots of other stuff going on, but I think he's kind of trying to keep it to the main things. Thank you. Oh, prayer items, okay. Wisdom for the school leadership team. That's not just the staff and admin, it's also the school board and the elders, because we're all kind of in this together, and everybody who works and is supportive there. Financial support, you've been hearing about that, and opportunities for growth and expansion, we're definitely thinking through those too, and got some ideas there, but not ready to talk about it yet. Thank you.
Not mentioned there is that the property at the end of the block called Oxford, it was a upstairs 4-bedroom house that got turned into classrooms. That's not being used this year. So at the moment, the owner is renovating the decks on the outside, and then we're planning to put a kitchen back in that was taken out for classrooms. And we would like to rent that with each May telling the renter if we need it in August or not. The assumption is that we don't need it for the next 2 years, for this year and next year, but that we will need it after that. The good news is the owner would like us to have it long term. And so Bruce, we've had a 20-plus year relationship with him, and he is very favorable towards short-term rentals to other people with the idea of us using it in the future. He also mentioned that he really wishes we would do a development project together and he would get the penthouse suite on the top. And when Arnold Bennett heard that, Arnold, are you listening? When Arnold Bennett heard that, he said, "What are you waiting for? Let's go!" And I about fainted. I said, "We just finished with construction. We're done." But we'll see. Can we just pause, and at your tables and groups, can we maybe put that slide back on and let's pray for our school. Pray for Janice, the leadership team, and the school board as we look at those kind of long-term things, and pray for the transition and growth that's going on right now. We'll just take a few minutes at each group. Just take another 30 seconds or so. Okay. Keep praying for that. Brady, if you want to come. We'll keep praying for our school, and we're excited about what God is doing. I should also say that there's already quite a bit of kindergarten enrollment for next year has come in already, which is quite early, and that's exciting as well. Brady, come and give us an update on East Village Kids.
All right. So in April, the construction finished, and the work did not stop. It kept going and got harder. But we've had, and I know, thinking back over the past few years as we were preparing for the daycare, one thing that I was mentioning a lot from here to everybody and asking for prayer was to find the right staff, bring the right people in that could work in the daycare, in the preschool, everywhere to best serve this community and serve the children and their families. And those prayers have absolutely 100% been answered. And we're so appreciative of, I just know how many of you have been praying for that and continue to pray for that, as we have some really, really incredible people that get to every day love these children and love their families and witness to them in such a practical way. The flexibility and servant hearts of the staff that we have is really incredible. And I'm not just talking about the daycare. As the daycare opened up and we started and the work skyrocketed, my focus became very much on the daycare and our out-of-school care, before and after-school care, and preschool and summer camps got less of my focus. And while that happened, we had Nate step up big time. And again, out of nowhere, he showed up in May. And I don't know what would have happened over the summer without him. He's, with little experience with kids, he has the heart and the natural ability with them that, God knew. And God knew he was going to pull it out of him. And he brought him here and gave him to us and gave him to those kids. Thanks, Nate. Yeah. David wants you to come up so the camera can see you. Yeah. I think why I get emotional about Nate specifically is because this out-of-school care group, these kids that are in school that come before and after school care and summer camps, right there. This is Nate, in case you didn't see him before. Thanks. Our families that I've built relationships with over the past 9 years and have had my heart, and I've had to let go of that, and to see them cared for, God just moving somebody else into that place to care for these families is remarkable. Yes. And then preschool, we have Daniela and we have Mona. Mona, you know, and they are, just an absolutely wonderful team together. It's rare that you see people come together the way they have in the last few months and just work so seamlessly. Just without verbal communication, they just are able to know what the needs are, and just to see their hearts and love for the children, especially the ones that are challenging. They see they see God through these children, and they never get frustrated or anything, and they're able to see what's behind these behaviors, what's behind these challenges, and support that child in that way. And so that's something that is so necessary. So, well, my focus has shifted over at the preschool and the out-of-school care. God's brought in the staff that are needed there for the families to continue to care and love for them. And then over here at the daycare, he's brought in a whole group of new staff and new educators, and I keep telling them that starting something new like we've done is really heavy lifting. We're doing the regular stuff that we'll be doing for years, but because it's new, it's from nothing, from scratch, it takes a lot more effort, day in and day out, and they've been doing that. Rebecca, who's not here today, she's going on vacation the next couple weeks, has been an absolute just workhorse, consistent, always there, loving the children, caring for the children, nurturing the children, flexible, coming up with new ideas, leading the staff, and praying constantly. So her and Laura and Christy and Gina and Sabine and Jojo have all come in and not minded the amount of work, because they're working a lot harder than you would be at a daycare that's been operational for 2 years, and are just willing to dig deep and do the work, and with a smile and with love and with grace every single day. So construction finished in April, but I was thinking when I was sitting over there that when we first started the construction, there's so much that happens at the beginning stages, but it just looks empty or not being used, or you don't see the progress of the construction. But that's when probably a lot of the heavy lifting and the hard work is being done. And I get the sense that that's what's happening right now, where the hard work is happening. We're putting in the foundation and the culture and the systems and how we operate, and that will produce in time a beautiful, beautiful space for the families of this neighborhood. So, yeah.
Question for you, Brady. How many kids are we talking about?
So I figured out a few months ago, overall in preschool, out-of-school care, and daycare, summer camps, we serve about 100 families a year. So over the summer, some kids come for 1 week, some kids come for 5 weeks. Preschool, we have them all year long, out-of-school care all year long, and then daycare all year long, and then spring break camps. So we have about 60 to 70 families that are with us like long-term, and then some that come in and out. So it's about just shy of 100 different families a year.
How many kids in the daycare?
24. At this moment, no. There's one spot for me to fill, but yes, it's been up and down. We opened in April, and then that end of the school year, summer, spring, or September is a transitional period for daycare. So some families pull their kids out early because they're going away in the summer. The ones that are going to kindergarten, and then come kindergarten, you have kids moving on in September, and then new kids coming in. So it's been a bit of a transition. So we've had lots of kids come in and then leave, and then more ones come in. But that brings me to another point that I meant to bring up, just as a show of what our staff are doing there. We had 5 families. So we are not $10 a day daycare. So our families are paying about $800 to $850 a month, and then the government puts in the rest. But that's not $10 a day. That's about $40 a day. We had 5 different kids get offered spots in $10 a day programs this September. 2 were from one family, and so that family took it, and one other family took it. But then we had 2 families that had those offers and chose to stay here with us because they love the staff that we have and the program that we're operating. And that was worth it to them to keep their kids in this nurturing environment. So, yeah.
Thank you. Let's take a moment and pray for our daycare, our preschool, our out of care, our summer, For Nate, Mona, Brady, Laura, Rebecca, Jojo, Gina, Christy, and I miss somebody, Sabine. Anyway, pray for all of them. One thing that Brady said at a board meeting recently was, it's not so much that the children are the mission, but they're a door to the parents. And so how we care for the children, it's not that they're having Sunday school lessons with the kids teaching them the Bible. They're taking care of kids all day long like you do in your house when they're your own kids. And the way they take care of them is an open door to the moms and dads. And so if we could just pray for our staff and also just pray for the influence in our neighborhood. Just take another 30 seconds. Okay. Joey just reminded me as well that with our daycare, we received a grant and we entered into a 15-year agreement that we would continue to minister to this neighborhood on behalf of the provincial government. So that's a 15-year commitment, and we could buy out the grant if we wanted to do something different. At the East Village Kids Preschool after school, that was a 10-year arrangement, and we're entering into our final year right now with that agreement on the property there. So that's a milestone as well that's been good to see come to a conclusion. Just a word about the next chapter, vision. This comes out of 2 or 3 weeks ago. The elders had a weekend together with Ron McLean and Stephen Abrams, and I just wanted to share a few thoughts about that. I'm feeling a little bit off today. Yesterday I led a funeral for my neighbor, and he was 31 years old, He rented right next door to us, and we would talk when he's working on his motorcycle, and he'd help me with my motorcycle, and got to know each other a little bit. Really, really a fine young guy. And he was on his way to work, and the float plane landed, and the tow tipped in, and they rolled, and he was drowned about 2 weeks ago in Port Hardy. So yesterday, I was leading his funeral with about 100 people, maybe 100 or so, maybe more. And if you've ever been reminded of the verse, "Do not mourn as the world mourns, who have no hope." This is like a nice family, a whole bunch of lovely people, beautiful relationships, successful financially, just good East Van people who have been here for generations. And yet, without God, and with 90% of the room without God, there is such a missing link. I can MC a meeting, I can transition from one speaker to the next and to the song and to the slideshow, and they made it very clear we're not a religious family. So I said, "Do you want me to do anything from the Bible? It's okay either way." "Yeah, there's some people that would be meaningful, so you can do a little bit." So I prayed and I brought in the scriptures from the Psalms where so many times the psalmist says life is unfair and unjust, and is there really God, and does he really care? And I just read some of those Psalms for us to ponder and made a few comments. But the last 2 weeks I've been really affected by his death, feeling like so many of my neighbors that I've been sowing seeds for 10, 20 years in their life. And this was one that I was getting to know and sowing seeds. But suddenly I didn't have 10 years. He's gone. And it's just made me think again about the dual life that we're always in, of now and not yet, never knowing the future. And every life is fragile and important. And I know that God uses all of our actions, and he will do these things. And actually, the funeral was an amazing opportunity to connect with some people who really did appreciate a Christian's involvement in that funeral. So we were able to, and we'll see where it goes in the future with his parents. But I feel like Ron McLean sometimes talks about redigging your spiritual wells. And if I think back over the last 10 years, I feel like we've redug the wells of being a neighborhood church. And we're at the close of a chapter. We have been heavily involved in construction and properties for the last 8 years and planning for the 2-3 years before that. And it's a little bit like what Brady had said a moment ago. When the construction finished, then there was still a whole lot of work to do to walk out that daycare. We're still walking it out. We're still putting practices in place and so forth and so on. And the 10 years that we've been involved in has been an important part. God spoke to us that 100 years ago, some people poured out their all to pay $700 for this property. They gave 25-cent offerings, 50-cent offerings, and once a year, some wealthy person put in $50. That's how this place began, as a church for the logging community. And I still meet people who had Bible study at Pastor Bob's house before the revival, before all the Jesus Revolution, just a local church with their choir, having boys' clubs and girls' clubs, and sowing into the neighborhood. I recently met someone who rode the church bus to this location because their parents wanted them out of the house. And somewhere, if there's something in our spiritual wells, it is ministry to children. And we have redug some wells with our school, our preschool, our daycare. And at this season, the congregation has very few babies. We have a lovely nursery downstairs that isn't used a lot. And now we have an amazing facility for West Coast kids that is not used a lot yet. It's just beginning. And so, if you're telling the story to someone that over the last 10 years we've been faithful to say, "Yes, Lord, for our generation, we will restore for the next 100 years. We will provide a foundation for that." That chapter's done. And now we turn the page. But before someone says, what are you going to do next? Let's just walk in what we've done. We need to walk out all that we've been putting ourselves towards in the last 10 years. And when I say walk it out, I mean actually seeing us serving into the school and the preschool and the daycare, seeing us praying for those families that Brady was talking about. The reason he gets emotional is when you see them day in and day out here, you start to love them. They're just dropping off their kids. But they're lovely people who, many of them don't know Jesus yet. And they appreciate the interaction. And we need to pray that God will take them the next step and actually transform their families. And one of the things that you'll see when you're talking to Brady is that he wants to guard the integrity of that process. They're not people to be practiced on. They're not people to just be, let's give them a track. It's relationships that our staff are building day in and day out. And so if we can pray for the staff, but also can we participate whenever we can, and instead of thinking, what might we start downtown East Side, or what might we start in Eastern Africa, or what might we start here? All those things, yes and amen, we'll do that too. But God has given us something, and when we turn the chapter, it means now we're actually walking in, we're moving into the house that we've created. We're now furnishing the rooms, and now we're decorating, not pictures, people. We're decorating with the works of God. And so it's that season that we're in now, and we should celebrate that 10 years of hard work has been completed. My personal schedule has drastically changed in the last 2 months. The last 2 months has been a drastic shift. Suddenly, for the first time in 8 years, I'm not talking to a contractor. That was a regular daily experience. Suddenly, for the last year, I'm not looking at administration. Wilford is on staff now. And so many phone calls that come to me, I say, oh, you're calling the wrong person now. Well, ask him that. And God has brought Wilford at just the right time. He has a very clear administrative organizational mind. And because he has fresh eyes on it, and he's only been in our church for 3 years, he can see all kinds of information. He says, well, how do they know that? Or where's that written down? Or where's that documented? And he's bringing together a lot of things that different people know and trying to systematize it so that new people coming in know where to find the answers and know how they can volunteer and how they can be part of the family. And our family is changing. We have more people who may only be here for 3 or 4 years because of school or immigration or housing or whatever the situation is, but he's helping to let them be effective when they're here, and we still have relationships with Ethan on whatever island he's on right now. I can't pronounce it. Ethan's on an island right now. But God will keep doing that. So that's a beautiful thing. The other thing that's transition is that for 2 years, we've been always prayerfully stressed out about our school budget. You like those words, prayerfully stressed out? I know. Be anxious about nothing. Give it all to Jesus. Well, we did. And he led us to make a big shift. And K-9 has turned out to be a wonderful answer. And we're really, really pleased. I know it's difficult for some of the families that were looking for grade 10, 11 this year, but it actually has brought just a lot of peace, and growth is happening in the younger years, which is really beautiful. So when we turn the chapter, as the elders spent a day in prayer about this, it just felt like this is what's been provided. There's unity, there's good government, there's an understanding of God's grace and acceptance of people. There's physical property that's been well prepared for ministry. And now it's time to implement and to walking out our core values. And one of those major core values is every member a minister. And when we think about every member a minister, and we think about the prophetic side of God's call for children ministry among us, how do we minister into those things that God's given us? We've been thinking about the word spiritual formation, and the next little chapter, you're going to be hearing more about intentionally thinking about how do we individual ministers, each of us, increase in our spiritual formation. not just how do we work hard together, but our one-to-one relationship with Jesus. Because it's out of that connection with Jesus that we then are the light, and we are the minister, and we are his hands and his feet, and we're giving to the world from him and not from our effort. And so, as we prayed into that, Jeff actually had a picture of this river of God, and as he shared it, I pulled out my email and realized that just 3 days before, the daycare director from Winnipeg had emailed Brady and I with a vision that he had. And he said, I was just waking up and I had this vision of your church. And there was this mighty river that was flowing down the streets, but it wasn't flooding houses. It wasn't doing any damage. It was just the beautiful river of God blessing your neighborhood. And it was just an encouragement of, you're on the right track. Just keep going, keep going. God's going to bless your neighborhood. So that was just an exciting thing as Jeff shared his vision. I thought, wait a minute, I just heard this, and pulled out this email from, his name is Ron, a different Ron in Winnipeg. Joy was feeling that there's the verse of God will do more than we ask or imagine, that there's like your computer system gets an upgrade. Your church has just gotten an upgrade, and God is doing more among us. And then there's the natural steps of just men's ministry, women's ministry, getting together in connect groups, the things that we do all the time that are worthy of our time. Just keep doing those things. Another one was Addison saying from strain to strides, that we're not straining, but we're just walking in, harvesting and sowing God's word. And the idea of it being sustainable, that we're not striving in effort, but God is just walking us in a sustainable way. And then Ron McLean had this vision of the walls of our church falling down like drawbridges being let down to let people in. That the walls had just came down like a drawbridge, and people could come in and to be part of. And the verse of no one lights a lamp and puts it under a bushel, but to let your light shine. So we'll end there, and thank you for being part of today. Let's stand together, and let's just close in prayer. Father in heaven, how privileged we are. We think of King David when the temple was built, and he said, who am I? Who are my people that we could be part of something like this? Lord, thank you for the privilege of being called your children. Thank you for the celebration we have of physical work that's been completed. Thank you for the reports that we've been hearing from the school and the preschool, the daycare, the out of school, from the congregation, from the connect groups, the youth groups. Lord, all around us, your people are responding to you. All around us, your people are being faithful to walk in it. And so, Lord, we want to just hold this before you and say that we know that we've concluded a certain chapter of preparation. And as we walk in this, would you guide over all the details? Would you bring the right people into the right places? Lord, would you soften the hearts of our neighborhood and let our light shine and touch people and bring them into our homes and into our youth groups and into our children's care and our Sunday school. Lord, we ask that families around us would be transformed because of the good news of Jesus. And would you cause us to hear together and move together as one body? Thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. On your way out, if you have children downstairs, if you could go first and relieve the children's workers. All of us, there's cookies that you have to eat cookies on the way out. And then if we can help clean up, that's great. Have a good afternoon.